You keep sleeping again, like we thought we had that fixed.
You did for a while.
My little green checks.
Look at you still.
He's going to sleep every evening, so.
You're back to walk out together.
All right, we're good. All right, good evening. Welcome to the Tuesday, June 18, 2024 Urbandale City Council meeting. I will call the meeting to order and ask Nicole to take roll call, or Alyssa, whoever's taking.
Bodie,
Here.
Harvey Montgomery. Here. Kroll.
Here.
McBurney. Rosendahl.
Here.
Thank you.
Please stand as you're able for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the
United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Urbandale is a national leader in character counts, endeavoring at all times to promote and model the principles of trustworthiness, respect, responsibility, fairness, caring, and citizenship. In conducting tonight's meeting, we expect that all participants will act in a respectful manner consistent with these principles. Item 2 is to approve the agenda. Motion by McBurney,
Second.
second by Bodie. Discussion, please vote. That passes. Item 3, presentations. We have a proclamation for Juneteenth that I'd like to read. Whereas Juneteenth, also known as Emancipation Day or Freedom Day, commemorates the historic moment on June 19, 1865, when Union General Gordon Granger arrived in Galveston, Texas, to announce the end of slavery and the enforcement of the Emancipation Proclamation. And whereas Juneteenth is a day of reflection, celebration, and remembrance, recognizing the resilience, strength, and enduring contributions of African Americans to our community, state, and nation. Whereas Juneteenth serves as a reminder of the ongoing journey toward equality and justice for all, inspiring us to work collectively to eliminate racial injustice and inequality in our society. And whereas it's important to acknowledge the significance of Juneteenth in our nation's history and to honor the contributions of African Americans in the face of adversity. Now therefore, I, Robert Andweg, Mayor, do hereby proclaim June 19th, 2024 as Juneteenth in Urbandale, Iowa. I call upon all residents, businesses, schools, and community organizations to observe Juneteenth with events and activities that promote education, reflection, and unity. Let us use this day to renew our commitment to creating a society that values diversity and equality for all. Sign this. And next, I'd like to recognize our Library Director, Nicholas Janning, who's going to give us an overview of some Juneteenth activities that will be happening at the library tomorrow. So, Nicholas.
Thank you, Mayor, members of council. Excited to be here to share just a little bit about some of the. Thank you. Mayor, members of council, thank you for having us here. I'll talk a little bit about some of the things that we're doing over at the library for Juneteenth. We're most excited about a traveling exhibit that we have gotten from the African American Museum of Iowa over in Cedar Rapids. So this is the second year that we've been doing it. Last year, it was talking about the exhibit that we had talked about the African American experience in the education system here in Iowa. And now this year, it is Behind the Beat, talking all about the origins and the evolution of African American music here in the United States. There's even some cool photos of a civil rights march in Fort Madison, and then also of a jazz musician, Louis Jordan, performing over in Cedar Rapids. So it's a pretty cool traveling exhibit. I'd encourage all of you to stop by and help promote it. It's over in the middle of our library, so you'll walk in and you'll see it right away. So we've got that going on at the library. We also have Black author speaking as part of our virtual author series, and that's going to be on Thursday at 1 o'clock, talking about the education system. So that'll be another thing. And then we also do have some crafting events for the kids as they stop in over at the library. So some fun things going on, some good things going on over at the library for Juneteenth. So I encourage all of you to stop over there and then also just help us spread the word.
All right. Thank you, Nicholas. Thank you for organizing that. Appreciate that. Thank you. All right, we will move on to Citizens Forum. This is the opportunity to address the council on something that's not a part of tonight's agenda. Would anyone like to address the council this time? All right, seeing none, we'll move on. Item 5, the adoption of minutes, first from the June 4 meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Kroll, second by Bodie. Discussion, please vote. All right, that passes. Secondly, from the June 8 tour.
So moved.
Second.
Second by Bodie. Discussion, please vote. All right, that passes. And then the June 11th lunch and learn.
So moved.
Motion by Kroll.
Second.
By Bodie. Discussion, please vote. That passes. Item 6 is a consent agenda. I'm going to ask that, due to some questions, I want to pull item 6.4 and item 6.10 off the consent agenda and ask for a motion to approve the balance.
So moved.
Motion by Kroll,
Second.
by Bodie. Discussion, please vote. That passes. And then with their, excuse me, with regard to item 6.4, I know we had some discussion and some questions. I'm going to turn it over to, I guess, unless anybody wants to raise some questions. Pat, I know you had a question.
Yeah, he sent a report that was pretty thorough, so I feel like my questions were answered. I just would love to get the feel from others if they really feel like we want to do this. My only concern is the people that it sometimes ends up affecting. This is the parking piece. And the idea is we're raising the rates so that we can end up being able to send these off to collection. And so I just am a little concerned about the people that end up having to face that. So that's my only thought. I just wanted us to talk about that before we confirm or deny.
Well, I definitely appreciate that consideration, and I know that I did briefly review AJ's report from late this afternoon, but I'm trying to pull it up now to see exactly how much we're talking about.
I'd be happy to paraphrase.
Yeah, why don't you do
Yeah.
that?
Okay. Well, when the question came up, and this is something that when we looked at the fine schedule and the fee schedule, it was suggested actually at a higher rate, but we suggested it was going to be at a $40 rate is just as a matter of making sure that if we had unpaid traffic fines or parking fines, that it would fall within the threshold that we could, as Councilmember Bodie mentioned, that we could process through our collection process and actually use the state's offset program to collect. And that's a program that allows us to, for unpaid fines and fees, that we can go through that process. It's been around for, I'll say, maybe, 15 to 18 years now, that allowed municipalities to use that to collect unpaid obligations to their community. It does, on the offset program, for example, it does prioritize what items are taken from tax returns or those types of facilities or access that the state has. The top priority is for childcare. So if you have an outstanding childcare or support payment, those are the ones that get paid first to the family. But collection of city fines are fairly well down the ladder. So there are times, even if we get into the offset program, that there aren't fees to collect or any monies to collect. This is just one of our ways to look at, when we have about roughly, $9,000 to $11,000 a year, we have an outstanding parking tickets that we can't collect on. And so this was a mechanism by which, one of the few things that we still have control over, that we thought it's still a parking fine. They're typically parking violations that are based on complaints. from neighbors or based on officers' observations. They could be violations of not moving your car after a 24-hour period. They could be violations for parking illegally on a street that's posted no parking, even if it's not within the 24-hour time period. It's not a significant amount of money, but it is just one of those that as we look at those items that we can control, this is one that is a very effective mechanism for us to make collections. We also included in the narrative that was put together by our finance director, we also show the tickets as far as the number of snow ordinance tickets, total tickets written, and then where we compare with the other communities. And I would preface that by every community has a little different outtake and outlook on parking and different fine structures and the volumes. So that is just more of a comparison versus it's more of an apples to peaches to pear type of comparison versus apples to apples. So again, this is something that we're suggesting if council feels that it's not the appropriate time to do so. Staff is fine with that as well.
I think looking at the parking tickets that we have current, we're at what, $20, and that would still put us at second highest in the metro under just Norwalk, I believe. And essentially we'd be bumping it up to match what our snow ordinance tickets were, which I would say are generally speaking more of a safety concern than just a standard parking ticket. I mean, I'll be honest, when I read the email earlier, I misread it. I looked at the snow ordinance ticket and thought, oh, well, that just puts us in line with everyone else. But looking back at the actual parking ticket column, it does put us quite a bit up there outside of where our sister cities are at. And I don't know if that's necessarily where we need to be at.
Okay.
That's just my thoughts.
The other thing is we could try it, and if it doesn't give us any pushback, and if people are not unhappy about it, then fine. That's another way to go, but I would certainly, at the minimum, want to make sure we monitor it in some way to know that we're not really making people have to get a lot of hassle over something that is a problem for them. There are people out there who, they have a lot of different vehicles that they got to mess with, and they're in a situation where there's only one parking space for them and they need to, and stuff happens.
I know, anecdotally speaking, the police department does an amazing job of trying to track down the people first, just to get them to move it, rather than having to write the ticket. And
Right.
I know that firsthand because we've had them stop by our house. So.
Well, and
So,
that's
yeah.
also a nice consideration, I mean, if that's happening.
Yeah.
I just wanted us to make sure we weren't just blanketly supporting it without making sure we had a conversation about it first.
Yeah, I mean, if we can keep track of it and see if there's any complaints raised, that would be, I would agree with Pat on that and be okay with it.
All right. We'll continue to monitor.
I really appreciate all of the information that you put in this communication to us this afternoon. And I guess, next year when we reset or, take another look, we do this annually, to have a report like the one attached, the collection status, and just letting us know. I mean, there's some fascinating information from the library collections, I think, in there too. That, the amount of fees from 2020 were quite surprising in the collections report. I thought that somehow we were not having that many collections from 2020 overdues, but that's a whole nother discussion we can have. But I would love to see this annually, and I think we've indicated that we want to see, know how this worked
Certainly.
next year. So what mechanism from the state, was it in a certain bill that changed that $50 offset?
The threshold's always been there.
Oh, okay, we haven't been able to reach it with the parking?
Right, the parking is the one.
Oh, okay.
That makes more sense.
So now we would be
Yeah, the
sending,
offset, I'm sorry.
I was just saying, now we would be sending to collections people who failed to pay their
Again,
parking
the
ticket.
offset program's been around, and I'm going to say at least 20 years. And it's been a long time. And it's just, again, as I mentioned, it's been a mechanism by which the state said, we're going to allow for municipalities to file through that process. Child care and child support is the highest priority to be paid, as it should be. And at the same time, and there are instances that in the offset program, it targets what the state can control, usually a tax refund or something like that. And if there's not enough to go around, as I mentioned, we can file, but doesn't necessarily mean that we'll collect anything.
Well, I just appreciate that the state gives us an opportunity to help collect revenue.
There was another mechanism allowed, but the counties have not, we haven't come to any resolution with the counties about, I know Pope County uses the Pope County Treasurer, and that they will essentially not allow you to register your vehicle until outstanding fines and fees are paid. That has not been made available to us. For what reasons, I can't.
Hey,
tell you.
AJ, this is
Yes.
Nikki.
Please, Nikki, yes.
Just to chime in on that, so the only change, offset has been available all of that time, actually since pre me, so at least 20 years. But the change has happened because it changed from Department of Administrative Services to the Department of Revenue. So the $50 limit has usually been if they have, you can cluster, I guess. So if they had a library fine and a parking fine, we could send them all through. Now with the Department of Revenue, each individual fine has to be over $50 for us to be able to submit it. So the $50 has been there, but it's been cumulative. So we have been able to submit parking tickets up through now as they are. But with the new change for Department of Revenue, if we don't increase our amount, we will no longer be able to submit parking tickets because they won't be over.
Thank you.
So that was just the clarification.
It's good info.
It's unfortunate.
Yeah. So what do we want to do?
Just a quick thing from me, AJ, with your comment about the county. You said that the county hasn't opened that yet. I guess the thing that concerns me about using a system that would prevent somebody from registering their vehicle is that could be pretty problematic to them keeping a job or childcare, things like that. So that may be something, I guess I would be very cautious when approaching that type of situation.
I would prefer to go this route.
Yeah.
Yeah, well,
I would agree.
I'd be okay with moving to approve Resolution 172-2024.
motion by Bodie,
Second.
second by Carberry Montgomery. Discussion, please vote. That passes. And then moving on to item 6.10, to discuss the Iowa Stormwater Management Manual with regard to Senate File 455. I'll turn it over to Kristen Brostom. Kristen?
Good evening, Mayor and members of the council. I'm going to give you a real quick overview of where we are now with our stormwater management requirements and what we are going to tweak in order to stay in compliance with the new SF 455. So just a quick recap, City Code adopts SUDAS for the design and the installation of stormwater systems. So that's the pipes themselves, what size they need to be, and how to install them. In 2021, we supplemented that by adopting the Unified Sizing Criteria design method, and that's laid out in the Iowa Stormwater Management Manual. We love our acronyms, so lots of acronyms when we talk about stormwater. That particularly talks about the post-construction stormwater management, so the volume that you have to detain on site if you have to treat it and what your release rate can be. Those guidelines came out of the Capital Crossroads Initiatives, which was a series of many discussions involving both cities and developers from 2019 to 2021. And for the most part, most of the metro kind of went the same way with their final outcome with the ISWIM guidance. And so just a quick recap on that unified sizing criteria we went to. In the past, we've just kind of had one release rate for the whole site, and that was the goal. In recent years, it's really become obvious that those smaller storm events, the ones that happen once a year, twice a year, 3 times a year, really do have an erosive property on our streams, and helping to manage those both for quantity and for the water quality can really help stormwater watersheds. So the unified sizing criteria has a number of tiers for their release rate. Just going through it real quickly, the recharge requires infiltration. Coming out of Capitol Crossroads, there was a lot of discussion about that, whether we wanted to implement it or not. It was left as optional, and we did not adopt that threshold. We did adopt water quality, which provides some filtration for that first flush that hits the pavement. The idea is, you got a lot of stuff in the pavement and in the grass, and that first flush that gets down there then gets some treatment before it goes into stormwater, reducing those suspended solids. Channel protection is for the 1-year storm. So that's the storm the big one you had each year, to help that low flow erosion. The larger storms, they call them overbank flood protection and extreme flood protection. These are the 5 to 100-year storms. In the past, we over-detained those storms back to the 5-year. As part of unified sizing criteria, we said instead of going back to the 5-year, we'll just detain to the same storm in the pre-development condition. In this case, we call it meadow. Iowa used to be mostly meadow and prairie, so that's the standard we use. And that's kind of the 2 key things that we're going to talk about, is that with our current design today, we use same storm release in the pre-development condition. Senate File 455 was approved by the governor on April 10th. It had a number of key components for both cities and counties. For the on-site detention for the 5 to 100-year storm, the cities may not be more restrictive than the 5-year storm for the site conditions existing at the time of development, which is interpreted to mean if there is pavement or building on the site at the time you develop it, that you don't take it back to meadow. You use that existing condition. Unfortunately, we feel that's problematic because, of course, many of those areas are in older parts of town where stormwater was not required in the first place when it was developed, and there are downstream impacts to that runoff that it seems like if you're bringing a new site into new development, new code, that we should address that. But the House and Senate disagreed, and that's the Senate File 455. The other couple of components is topsoil. Cities may not go beyond the GP2 permit, which says preserve with feasible. That's what we currently do, so there's no change there for us. Same thing with pass-through rates, off-site flow. So if you've got flow coming into your site, you can pass it through and release it at the same rate. Again, that's what we currently do, so there's no change there for us. They also stipulated that any additional requirements are at the cost of the city. I'm honestly not quite sure how to calculate that for most of these things, both for the engineering and the implementation, but that is a provision. If we want to be more restrictive, we have to pay for it. So again, circling back to our current guidelines for overbank and extreme flood protection, and this is what we are proposing today in this memo, is we would follow Senate File 455. We are going to now ask for over-detaining back to their 5-year release rate. If we need to use the higher rates from the existing site condition rather than treating it as a meadow condition, then we want to over-detain back to that 5-year and try to balance that out a little bit. We are also offering the option that if the designer wants to go ahead and use that meadow, use that pre-development condition, then we are fine with them releasing at the same storm release rate. So kind of the practice that we have now. If they want to use our current practice, they can, but otherwise we will follow Senate File 455 and they can release at the 5-year for the existing condition. And then the way we understand this, the way it sounds like other communities are interpreting this is Senate File 455 only refers to these storms, and we still have the requirement under drainage law to make sure that we're not adversely impacting downstream properties. So we would still evaluate the downstream system for capacity and make sure we're not overloading it. And then, I guess, in keeping the spirit of Capitol Crossroads, and we've been a part of the Iowa Stormwater Education Partnership, ISWIP, for a number of years now, we are still communicating with other cities to see what they're doing. And we have a meeting next week, actually, with most of the cities in the metro to discuss what they're doing and the path they're going forward. From talking with a few of them, Waukee, Polk County, and West Des Moines are very similar to us on how they're approaching this, and they're going to maintain that water quality and channel protection component, and then the slight modification for the larger storms to comply with SF 455. So that was a real quick overview. I'd be Overflow might be a better word for some basins. Happy to answer any questions.
All right.
I guess I have a question. I thought Pat was going to jump in, but could you like walk through like a hypothetical like case? Like if someone wanted, I'm just thinking of like the old Kmart, if there's an outlot there that someone wants to develop on.
So I ran some real quick numbers this afternoon, and of course it depends on the site and everything, but if we're talking about 1 acre of flow in the 100 years, so this would be under like our current standards, 1 acre of flow in the 100 year, let me get to the right page here. If you're looking at it as a meadow condition, could release 8,000 cubic feet of water, okay? If we use the existing conditions, so we say it's impervious, in the existing condition, that'd be 23,000 cubic feet of water. So it's almost 3 times as much to go from like a meadow condition to an impervious condition for the runoff. And that's why we're looking at over-detaining back to the 5-year. In this case, it'd be about 4,000 cubic feet of runoff. So it would just make them slow it down a little bit more before it hits the neighbors. And did that help? That kind of just.
No, it doesn't. I mean, I guess I just don't know enough. I just know this is not for what we're trying to do and how we're trying to protect our citizens and their property. I know this isn't what we should be doing. So I'm trying to have, I'm unfortunately not a water engineer like my seatmate here, but I just like, so someone wants to do something at, redevelop a concrete.
Right.
So that we would, prior to this law, they would have had to go back and address it as pre-existing meadow condition.
So someone buys the Kmart and they're going to redevelop it. We say, you don't get credit for there being pavement there already, you know? And I guess in my mind, I view it just like any other electrical code or plumbing code or whatever. You got to meet current codes. So we would look at the meadow condition and bring it up. The way I read Senate File 455 is you have to use the existing condition. So that site's entirely impervious, which means if we kept our current guidelines for doing the same storm release, the release would be somewhere between 2 and 3 times what it would be if we went back to meadow condition, which I feel like it doesn't help anything. If you're going to redevelop something, now's your chance to correct some of those problems, and it wouldn't help.
So what you're saying is if they were to redevelop it under our old way of doing it, they'd have to redevelop it at that 8,000 level as opposed to the 24,000 level. So in other words, like now they can have a much higher flow than if we were to go back to our old way of doing it.
Which is why we'd like to pull it back to the 5-year. It helps regain some of that ground, and that's allowed by the SF 455.
And so you're saying that we're just going to have larger detention ponds to...
I think it'll be maybe a little bit bigger. One of the things we looked at with the unified sizing criteria is it's got multi-level release rates. And so you've got a small orifice that kicks in for the small storm, a big one for the big storm. So the net size difference for the basins actually wasn't all that much switching to unified sizing criteria. I haven't modeled, a basin to know what it would be. I think it might be a little bit bigger now going back to the 5-year because we're over detaining those larger storms, but I think the alternative of releasing at that higher rate is detrimental.
So you talk about going back to this 5-year over detainment. Was that explicitly allowed in the bill, or was it an oversight that we're taking advantage of?
Nope.
Which I'm not complaining about if it was.
No, it specifically says cities may not restrict it to less than the 5-year flow for the existing condition.
So that's what's going to make this less bad.
It's less bad than keeping our same storm and existing condition requirement, correct?
Do they have any limits on rate of release in the
I don't believe so. I think, well, just that rate from the 5-year in existing condition, yeah.
And you mentioned West Des Moines, Waukee, Clive?
I have not heard yet what Clive's plan is. I'm hoping that we hear next week when we have that meeting with the metro communities. But we've emailed them and they've been on other emails. I just haven't heard back from them yet.
Gotcha, okay.
Kristen, does this apply to all development, residential, commercial, et cetera?
We use the same standard for everybody, yes. And I guess the way we're viewing it sort of is, you know, if you're in the queue now, you're under current standards. If you're coming into the queue after July 1st, then you'll be under those standards.
So what, I mean, I am so not really super clear with this. So what exactly are we being asked to approve tonight? The changes to our code that make us in line with the Senate action?
It's actually not in our code. So our code talks about following ISWIM. And then just like SUDAS, we've got a separate document that says, hey, we're going to make some tweaks to SUDAS. And you all approved that in January. At the same time, we also, in January, we weren't asking for any changes to our ISWIM criteria. So we got a separate document that says, this is how we're applying ISWIM. We're not doing recharge. This is what overbank means. This is what extreme flood means. So we are asking to modify those criteria to be in line with Senate File 455.
I really appreciate this. I guess I was the one that asked to pull this off so we could get a much more in-depth, because we invested a lot of time, and all of you did, in trying to get good policy made at the legislature. I guess at some point I would appreciate to hear back like what other cities are doing and how we're, if we think or if you guys think, or we should be doing something different that is going to better help us reach our goals of being good stewards of our environment and our residents. So,
Well, and if there might be at some point in time some more creative solutions that might, am I allowed to say circumvent?
Mitigate?
That might, mitigating approaches, yeah. That would be nice. And for what is helpful, if you want, I'll hand this off to you, but if you look at 2021 and you look at what we got sent today, or Friday, that gives you a little state of play of some of the comparisons and changes.
And SUDAS updates annually, so we always bring that supplemental to you in January. ISWIM's a little bit more sporadic as DNR does updates, so we're always evaluating those as they come on, but we definitely look at it in January at the same time as SUDAS, so we kind of give you a package deal, and we'll definitely keep an eye on it, see if there's any other options.
Yeah. Thank you.
All right. With that, is there a motion?
I move Council Letter 7828.
Motion by Bodie.
Second.
Second by McBurney. Discussion, please vote. Thank you, Kristen.
Yeah. But you will kind of keep us in the loop, right? Yeah. We'll let you know what we hear next week. That'd be great.
Thank you.
That passes. Item 7, public hearings. We have one public hearing to consider Lot 5 Westport Ridge Plat 1 Amendment to the Planned Unit Development Master Plan at 2894 106th Street. The public notice for this was published in the, I'm here.
Forgot to circle the date there. Do you see it in the?
Oh, June 7th. Just you said, sorry, Nicole. In the June 7, 2024 Des Moines Register, and is there any objections to that? Notice is published.
There were none.
Ask for a motion to open the public hearing.
So moved.
Motion by Kroll. Second by McBurney. Discussion, please vote. That passes. And to introduce this is our Community Development Director, Steve Franklin. Steve?
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, all. This is a request for a PUD amendment for the property you see outlined here in red, which is 2894 106th Street. Here's 104th, Buena Vista, turns into 106th. So the property backs up to Living History Farms. This is all Living History Farms adjacent to the west. So the request is from the prospective buyer, which is DSM Property Services. They've been in Urbandale for quite some time. They're over off 99th Street right now, and they need more room. They've got several different companies under their umbrella. And so they would like to purchase this building, which is currently an existing two-story building, got just under 25,000 square feet with the associated parking that you can see there in the aerial. And it was constructed in about 1986. And so this agenda item is directly related to item 9.1, which is the site plan. So I want to touch on that just a little bit. And then when we come back to that here in a few minutes, I'll make sure you've got all your questions answered on exactly what that looks like. But so the PUD amendment itself, the actual items that are part of the amendment is to reduce the rear yard setback, which would be along here, from 75 to 50 feet, adjacent to Living History Farms, to reduce the side yard setback from 30 feet to 10 feet, which would be along this side here to the adjacent building, and then to lower the parking ratio that's involved. And certainly, going from 50 to 30 and from 30 to 10 is certainly typical, I would say, in most of actually in all of our commercial districts. They all generally do not have a setback requirement, but if they do, it's 10 on the side and 30 at the rear, or excuse me, even 10 at the rear in some cases. So that's appropriate. This PUD was approved back in 1980, so it is an older PUD and kind of not up to what some of our standards typically would be. And so as part of them buying this building, they would need this accessory structure. And so that's what's precipitating the amendment request. They would take half of the building for their office space for the different companies. The remainder of the building would be leased to an insurance company, which is currently in the building. But then those companies do lawn care and provide some construction services. So they would need this proposed accessory building to be built, and that's what's precipitating the reduction request in the setbacks. So with that, I will leave it at that for now for the PUD amendment. Planning and Zoning Commission does recommend approval, and should you approve this, when we come back to the site plan in a minute, I can show you a couple other things associated with this.
All right, thank you, Steve. Any questions for Steve on the public hearing part of this? All right, we're in public hearing. Would anyone like to address the council on this item? Okay, seeing none, is there a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved.
Motion by Kroll,
Second.
second by Bodie. Discussion, please vote. That passes.
Motion to approve council letter 7829.
Motion by Kroll,
Second.
second by Bodie. Discussion, please vote. That passes. Item 8, establish public hearings versus item 8.1 is to establish a public hearing for July 16, 2024 for the community entrance signs, Phase 4. John would answer any questions if there are.
Motion to approve council letter 7827.
Motion by Kroll. Second by McBurney. Discussion, please vote. That passes. Item 8.2 is to establish a public hearing for July 16, 2024 for the Walnut Creek Regional Park Trail and Bridge. Motion by McBurney.
Second.
By Bodie. Discussion, please vote. That passes. Item 9, planning and zoning items versus item 9.1 for the Platinum Development Office accessory structure site plan at 2894 106th Street. Steve, back to you.
Okay, back to this, the site plan more specifically. So this is a rendering that was provided. There are several components to this. The main portion of it is to build this accessory structure. You can see that here in the picture. They also plan to, well, the roofs will match. This will have the same gable roof to match the existing building. They're going to have a new entrance canopy on the existing building. So there's just another idea of what that looks like. Kind of brings that out a little bit, trying to just upgrade what the look looks like from the street. And then here's a look at the accessory structure. This will be precast concrete panels. It'll be just over 9,000 square feet. It'll have about 900 square feet of office space in it, and that's what these windows are here on the, it's a one-story building, but it's got a little bit of a higher height to have the equipment in there. So about 900 square feet of office space. The rest of it will be warehouse space, and then all of their affiliated and associated equipment will be stored at all times inside this building. So we feel like that will still meet the office area. This use is compliant with our new comprehensive plan to have these types of uses in these areas. This building's been for sale for a while. It's going to look principally like the existing building. Feel like this is a pretty good opportunity to keep a business that's been in Urbandale for quite some time in Urbandale and be able to meet their growing business needs. Planning and Zoning Commission does recommend approval of the site plan with the comments noted as well. Be happy to answer questions.
So Steve, on the accessory structure, just, I mean, are there just overhead doors in the back?
Correct, yeah, I'm sorry, there was one more picture. There you go. There's the
Okay.
back side of it there. And again, this is the side that faces Living History Farm, so nobody's ever gonna see that back there. But yeah, those would be what those would look like. And then just in terms of, again, what the layout of the plan itself would look like, here's the existing building, there's the new building. Reconfigured parking areas with some parking up front, and then they would go around the back and be able to get that equipment in and out of the building with a few parking spaces back there, and then everything would be stored inside.
So the driveway between the two buildings is big enough for the equipment that they're going to be storing?
Correct. Big enough for their equipment and big enough that fire was happy to be able to get back there. The separation and everything met their requirements as well.
Any further questions?
I'll move approval of Council Letter 7830.
Okay, motion by Carberry Montgomery,
Second.
second by McBurney. Discussion, please vote. That passes. All right, thank you, Steve. Item 10.1 is consider the professional services agreement for the downtown Urbandale Master Plan. And to introduce this is our Assistant City Manager, Curtis Brown. Curtis?
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, council members. Thank you. With regard to Council Letter 7831 and the Downtown Urbandale Master Plan, the good news is this helps to move the comprehensive plan forward. So, for instance, in the comprehensive plan, there are policy recommendations for downtown on things like setbacks, signage, reading right from it, floor area ratios, lot areas, and height. If you look at the implementation for the comp plan, you see things, for example, like develop a shared parking strategy, eliminate curb cuts between adjacent developments, encourage opportunities for shared parking facilities, encourage installing a more prominent gateway feature into Urbandale, as well as looking at undergrounding utilities. All of those seem like easy recommendations, but they require more planning expertise and engineering expertise. And so we know that downtown has been a focus. The engagement with that area of town, with Lillis Lofts developing in that area, with the work that we're doing on Merle Hay at the mall site, and then the work that Aaron DeYoung and Ebony Woods are doing to engage the business community again for investment, a real focus does need to start downtown. So to move these policy recommendations forward from the comprehensive plan so that we keep that moving, we went out to the market and solicited responses to servicers for downtown master planning. We received 10 responses, interviewed 4. It was a group of departments within this building, plus the mayor, so there was a team of 9 that interviewed and scored. And the result of that was entering into a proposed contract here with Bolton and Menk. And Casey Byers, one of their landscape architects, is with us tonight representing the firm. But they're bringing all of their disciplines within the firm to assist, from planning to landscape architecture to traffic engineering as well. So we have told them, this is not another study. This brings our comp plan to clear action steps. So what we want to do at the end of this work, so if we get started this summer, we should finish up late spring, early summer next year. Ideally, we'll be bringing policy recommendations to the council on, let's call them legislative changes, so changes to the zoning ordinance, as well as then bringing those to the council second half of '25, but then being able to program in actual capital projects for the 2026 and beyond capital improvements plan so that we can start to slot these things in and start to see some changes downtown. So the contract with Bolton and Menk would have, we've negotiated their proposed number was 160,000. And we've had a lot of conversation to make sure that everybody is clear on what we're trying to get out of this plan. And I think Casey has heard us say many, many times, we are not redoing the downtown part of the comp plan. We're implementing now. So with that, the council letter gave the overview. The agreement and the scope of work are in the packet. I will stop, take any questions if there are from the staff side. If you have any questions about Bolton and Menk's approach, Casey can answer those as well.
All right. Thank you, Curtis. Any questions?
I would like to know a little bit more about what's involved in the market analysis and is it AECOM? Is that how you pronounce it? Their background?
Yes.
I'm not particularly familiar with them.
So a couple of us, myself, when I worked in Ankeny, and Aaron DeYoung when he worked in Dubuque, both worked with the lead economist from AECOM that's working on this. Very impressed with the approach they bring. They're a very large firm with a lot of resources. Even in the interview, it was very clear they knew exactly the approach that they wanted to take. We are going to need to provide them a lot of data to crunch first, which is good because we have robust GIS resources. And so they'll be able to do parcel by parcel analysis. So for example, one of the analysis is the building on the site worth far less than the lot that it's on? Okay. If that's the case, then that's a candidate to look at for redevelopment. They are able to model quickly various development approaches. So what if we put a 3-story mixed-use building at this corner? Does that work in this market? So we feel very confident about the approach they're going to take and the experience they've had in doing it.
Okay. And I'm not that familiar with Bolton and Menk's planning staff. Very familiar with the engineering staff. Sure. Just wondering if he wants to say anything about that.
You bet. It sounds like we'd like to hear from him.
Yeah.
Thank you, everybody. Casey Byers, Principal Landscape Architect here in Des Moines. So our firm we just celebrated our 75th year in business. We've been in Iowa for just over 20 years, and our planning and landscape architecture practice has really been building here in central Iowa and across the upper Midwest over the last 10 to 15 years. We have a staff of about 20 to 25 in our community planning group and another 30 landscape architects here in the Midwest. So certainly a practice area that we've been building over the years and have had been fortunate enough to be working in a lot of the Des Moines metro communities here. And this is a really exciting project for us. Because of the type of work it is, it's really valuable work. It's going to be very impactful for your community, but it also is an opportunity for us to demonstrate our multidisciplinary approach that we like to take to projects. So really excited about the opportunity here.
Thanks.
Thank you, Casey. All right,
Bruce, I had a quick question on.
Oh, go ahead, Blake.
I had a quick question on so the expenditure amount is 160. It says the budget is 50. Do we have an idea of where we're going to get pull savings from to hit that?
Certainly. So first, we're going to use the professional services amount that we had budgeted in the economic development budget for 24-25 for downtown. And then after that, This fits well into the council overview for how to spend the ARPA funds. So after those professional services, then we would look at authorization to use those ARPA funds going forward.
Thank you.
One last question. To what extent in the criteria that you used was cost a factor versus other things?
Certainly. So what we looked at actually was value. So what we wanted to really rate on was what is the product we are getting for the cost paid. And so it wasn't a contest to be the lowest. In fact, the firms mostly grouped right around that 150 to 170-ish range. And so to what extent was cost a factor? I will say one firm that was well over 200, we did not interview. So when we could see that we were getting a good product and response in that mid 100 to 200 range, we thought this is probably about where we need to be.
Thank you.
But yeah, far more important, or at least as important, was making sure that we had a good, clearly defined process that got this comp plan moving forward.
I'm very happy to see this moving forward, but I guess had no idea that you guys were doing this, like the RFP or anything. And so I was really surprised to see this. And so this is not any way doubting the need or the selection here, but I just feel like somehow the council was not looped into the fact that this was happening. I mean, maybe next meeting, there's going to be an affordable housing plan that you guys have done an RFP for and selected somebody that maybe I'm just joking about that. You know how I feel about that. But we just, I don't get the sense that any of us knew this was in the works.
Okay, that's good feedback.
And I think the same thing happened with the human services plan. It just kind of showed up. And this is a totally different ballgame, and this is fine. But I just think generally, it's good to know these things for us.
I did happen to know about it because I'd gone to a couple of the economic development meetings and it came up. But it would be lovely to know about these more formally.
Absolutely. Yeah. We agree. Thanks for the feedback.
Well, I'm glad that you reiterated through the process that this isn't just another plan that we're going to stick on our shelf, because I feel like we've had a lot of those lately and not as much action. So
for certain, we need to start implementing. Yep.
Yeah. Can I move Council Letter 7831?
By Bodie,
Second.
second by Carberry Montgomery. Any further discussion? If not, please vote. That passes. Item 10.2 is consider the purchase for the Barebosa Park and Natural Playscape Phase 2 playground equipment. And to introduce this is our Parks and Rec Director, Jan Herkey. Jan?
We are excited to be moving forward with Phase 2 of one of our most popular parks. I think it might have been, you drove past it at least on your tour, I think, this past weekend, but we've been working with a design firm and have before you tonight some playground equipment that will be part of this project. As most of you are probably aware, in 2002, Barebosa Park opened. It's at the intersection of 156th Street and Waterford Road. And Phase 1 included the parking lot, picnic shelter, restrooms, and a variety of natural play components. So Phase 2 is part of the CIP. Included in this program is an allocation of $240,000 to go toward this. I do want to mention that $40,000 of it is a donation from the Barrett Bozen Foundation. Bob Bozen is very excited about this park and the continued development of it. And we have identified Compin playground equipment. It matches kind of the existing theme. And we also, as outlined in the memo, that we used the cooperative, it's called Omnia Partners. It's formerly U.S. Communities, where it's a nationwide government purchasing cooperative. So they do competitive bidding throughout the nation. So then you already have that competitive bid. So we did use Omnia Partners for the bid on this project. And the new components are going to include an obstacle course, and I'm a visual person, so with pictures. So include obstacle course, climbing rock, a wobble bridge, hammock swings, and a bird nest swing area. So these are all kind of the outline here. So some neat new features. And the wobble bridge, so again, some of the main concepts of this whole park is creative play. It's natural, it's not the plastic or steel or things like that. So these will be some neat opportunities for kids to engage some new activities. And then a large rock will be part of it as well. So the next steps is, if this gets approved tonight, we'll place this order. As you know, playground equipment takes a long lead time, so we want to get this going. We will be bidding site grading and the flat work, as well as installation of this playground equipment as a separate bid. The goal is for fall construction, and therefore we're recommending approval of purchase of the playground equipment for $77,351. Be happy to answer any questions.
Looks really exciting.
It is. And I need to thank Scott Hoke, Assistant Director. Told him I'd cover this tonight, but he's done the majority of the work on this project and this phase. So I appreciate he and the staff, their efforts to move this forward.
That just looks great.
Motion to approve Council Letter 7825.
Okay, motion by Kroll, second by Bodie. Discussion, please vote. Thank you, Jan. All right, that passes. Item 10.3 is consider the insurance coverages for fiscal year 24-25. And to introduce us is our Director of Risk Management and Support Services, John Collier. John.
Thank you, Mayor. Mayor and Council, I have a short presentation for you tonight on insurance renewals that come up every July 1st. Also have Tim Brunkhorst with World Insurance. He is our insurance broker. So he is here as well to help answer any general questions across the way. Oh, it is up. Thank you, Nicole. So the city, to cover its insurance needs, actually doesn't use one single insurance company. So the logos you have at the top are those that we are recommending to use this year, and the same ones that we currently use for this fiscal year. So it's a tag team approach to make sure that we have the appropriate insurance coverages. For property, casualty, and liability, the city has been a member of ICAP, which is a pool insurance. The proposed rate this year is $733,634. It is a 32% increase from last year. As most of you know, probably personally, it's a hard insurance market, especially for property and for autos. Inflation has hit that as well. And so ICAP did send a letter in January letting us know that we could see a 30% increase potentially, or maybe even slightly higher. So we are on track for that amount. It's gone up 132% since 2020-21. So the trend will probably continue to go up based on weather events that we have here in Iowa and across the nation, unfortunately. Major changes to coverage this year is going to be a 2% wind and hail. So currently right now we have a $25,000 deductible for property loss. That is now going to 2% of the value of the item that you're claiming on. So it depends on what it happens to be in total. But if it was to be a fire station or Parks and Public Works, the deductible is going to be hundreds of thousands because there are millions of dollars up there. Also, roof damages are going to be excluded, so anything minorly cosmetic that's not structurally significant, they don't pay for anymore going forward. Just to kind of show you what are the driving forces besides inflation in a hard market. Sure, Councilmember McBurney.
Do they include solar panels in that as cosmetic?
Solar panels would be part of the value of the building. So yes, they would most likely be below the deductible if they were to be destroyed because the building's valued at $32 million. So 2% of that is not, it's more than probably what we put them on for.
I just want to make sure that they are covered by insurance though and not considered cosmetic.
They are covered by insurance. It would just be depend on whether or not the deductible would be more than what the value of that system is currently worth.
Got it. Thank you.
No problem. So what else is driving the rate increase, especially since 2020? This is based on property. And so Urbandale continues to build. We just had Jan come up for $77,000 in parks. When that's done, that will come on to our statement of values and will definitely raise. So currently, this year coming up, we are going to insure just over $167.2 million. So a rather large number. In vehicles has gone up from 15.1 million to 18.2 million. So as those go up, the cost obviously goes up as well. Cyber insurance, everyone needs cyber insurance today. And so we moved to cowbell last year to pretty much have better terms for the same amount that we had paid the year before. This is the bright spot. Cyber insurance is just going up 8%, which is really good because cyber insurance had been doubling year after year. So that's why you see the 290% from 2020. So to see an 8% with no coverage changes was absolutely wonderful to see. Cyber is driven by revenue, so the more revenue you take in, the higher exposure limits you have. So we've gone from 67.7 million to 93.3 this year, so it was great to see just that 8% increase. Workers' compensation is through IMWCA. City's been a member since 1985, so a very long time. It too is a pool, and this covers the non-411 employees here at the City of Urbandale. We have a 17% rate increase to 159,210. That is mostly driven by our modification factors. So if you're at a 1, that says that your losses is equal to what they expect you to pay. So 50,000, you would be at a mod factor of 1. We are at a mod factor of 0.88. So they expect our losses to be less than the average for other cities out there. We have been down at 0.62. We're up to 0.88. We've also been 1.1, 1.2 at some points in time, so it fluctuates back and forth. Indemnity claims also to the mod factor, they tweak how it's calculated every year. Indemnity claims have become a larger portion of that. So in the past, last year, only 25,000 of each claim was added to your mod factor. That's gone up to 40,500. So more money goes in, so your mod factor goes up higher. We still have a relatively really low mod factor and a low work comp rate compared to others throughout the metro. Just to kind of show you across the way where things, and this is not a pretty chart, I don't like this one, but our expenses to paid claims is trending in the wrong direction. Definitely we have some work to work there, but you'll see back down in 2020, IMWCA paid just about 68,000 in claims for us, and we were about a 50% paid, so we paid about 50% more than that. Last year, they paid 188,000 or 120% of our premium, so we did not get a favorable discount this year because of that, and definitely hope to turn that around and bring that back down. 411 medical coverage is proposed to be through EMC. We use them currently to be our TPA. So we are self-insured since FY13 for 411. This is fire and police claims through municipal fire and police that we are obligated to pay. The same terms from this year through EMC, it's $220 per claim or $40 for just a report only. That's where someone calls, says, I tweaked it back, but they never actually seek treatment. It's just a notice only. And then we do get a savings going through the EMC network. So there's a $9 per bill review, and EMC takes 28% of the savings cost. Last year, we saved 42% on prescription costs on average and 33% on medical costs. So it's a great advantage to be part of the EMC networks compared to just trying to negotiate that on your own as just the City of Urbandale. No changes in coverage. However, the legislation did pass House File 2680, which starts 7/1 of 2024. Coming up rather soon. The major pieces of that is there is a 3-year look-back window to cover medical costs on a retirement. So before currently, the city is obligated to pay medical costs for someone who goes on an accidental retirement for their life. So if someone has a presumptive heart disease or a presumptive cancer and you work in fire and police, the city pays the cost to treat that for the rest of the employee's life, even though they've retired out. That used to be just on accidental. Now it will be on any retirement going forward that they can't work. So in the past, if you threw out your back, that was not a presumptive. Now, as of 7/1, if you throw out your back and you can't work anymore, we will have to pay for that moving forward. And I'm preferencing this before we get to the next chart because that comes with the numbers piece of it. You'll see in 20, we paid a little over 100,000 in medical claims. This year, we've paid 118,185 to date so far, which is through the end of May. That number will probably come closer to $250,000.
Are you only talking about 411 right now?
I'm only talking about 411 claims.
Sorry to interrupt.
And with the new changes, as of municipal fire and police, each person that retires out, on average, the reserve for that person is anywhere between $118,000 and $350,000. So you could easily see an annual payment of $2.5 to $3 million alone, just in 411 work coming in the future. So just as a preference, coming forward, it will be a larger budget number moving forward. With that, I'm here to answer any general questions you may have, or Tim is also waiting in the wings as well.
I had a question about the cyber insurance. So if our system was hacked, I'm thinking about like DMAC a few years ago, and they were basically non-operational for a few weeks. Is that a first-party coverage event, or is it something that our employees do and that makes it first party? I don't.
No, that event would be covered under our cowbell insurance today and moving forward. And so covered up to $1 million, but it's in multiple tranches. So $1 million could be for replacing servers and infrastructure. Notifications, another $1 million. And so there's multiple layers there that we can tap into. Forensic investigation is another layer. So if James, our IT director, had to investigate why this happened or we're being held ransom, there's another pool of money there to tap into. And then ICAP does offer basic insurance, and we use them as secondary. So they have $100,000 in cybersecurity insurance that we would layer on top of that.
And our policy is consistent with other municipalities and of our size?
From what I know of, yes. For our metro comparisons, I'll leave that to Tim to say industry-wise. He's nodding his head yes.
Yeah,
So
that's all. That's sufficient.
A quick question on the workers' comp stuff. So with the claims continuing to rise, have we seen kind of a trend in the types of claims that we're seeing? And is there an idea of how we could, or different changes we could make at the city that may help turn those around?
That's a great question. Yes, we have seen an increased number of, as what I would call inattentive claims. Those are, I've done the job 1 million times and I'm really used to it, and I just stopped doing that one little component piece of it, and therefore I got injured. Perfect example of a recent claim is we had an employee who has to take a trailer off of a truck, and it's got a jack that you jack it up, and the employee's probably done that. Sorry, I dropped my pen. The employee's probably done that hundreds or thousands of times throughout their time working here. One time they decided, well, the trailer is really light, I'm just going to yank it up and just drop it on the ground instead. Well, they yank it up and they end up having a shoulder injury. You know, those are not unusual to Urbandale, though. That is a post-COVID incident claim rising, and they're called inattentive claims, and they are on the rise throughout industries everywhere.
Thanks for that context. I appreciate it.
So what do you do about that in your risk management job?
You know, there are multiple factors. Usually it's trying to find different ways to get people to recognize something that they've seen a million times. One thing that we took steps last year was your lock screen on PCs here usually shows you a little graphic every month, and it changes, and it's to help spotlight and to just make that aware that employees go, oh yeah, I forgot about that, or oh, I should wear that, or I didn't know about that. And so there's a lot of different ways. Shorter, more intense training too also helps.
All right, any other questions?
Can I move Council Letter 7795?
Motion by Bodie. Second by McBurney. Discussion, please vote.
Thanks, John. That had to be a lot of work.
February.
That's his actual job.
I know. I know.
Go.
Are we missing a vote yet?
Looks like everybody voted.
All right, that passes. John, thank you for the good job. So not the greatest news I know, but we'll work on it. So thank you. Thanks. Item 10.4 is consider the 2024-2026 City of Urbandale Strategic Plan. And do you want to, or are we going to just, Stephanie and Max, are you ready to kick it off for us from Baton Global, or John?
We have Stephanie Majoran and Max Hoxie from Baton Global that you
All right.
are very well aware of. For the two plans, I will get their presentation pulled up here for them so they are ready to go.
All right.
Max and Stephanie.
Mayor, council members, good to see you all. As you know, I feel like you see me a lot, right? So it's been a long time coming, but we are here to kind of present the final strategic plan for you guys, your mayor, city council biennial plan. We've spent many months together working through this and going back and forth and getting it just right. So we have the mission and vision statements that you guys worked through. So our mission is to foster a safe and inclusive Urbandale through the delivery of outstanding municipal services, fiscal responsibility, and a dedicated focus on community members. And then the vision, which as a reminder, we always think of the vision as more that future looking of what we would like where we would like to be in the future, is a safe, regionally connected community where diversity is valued, opportunities are abundant, and all can thrive. Along with mission and vision, we created some values. So you came up with 6 different values, and we have some definitions that go with those so that they're more easy to understand what we mean by that. Sustainability, quality of life, safety, inclusive community, collaboration, and accountability were those values that you came up with. To further narrow it down what we're doing with the strategic plan, we came up with 3 focus areas and 2 objectives for each of those focus areas. So community infrastructure and planning, public safety and administration and governance. And like I said, each of those have their own objectives to just further define what we're doing in each of those areas for the next, this 2-year period for the strategic plan. Within each of those, we have high-level initiatives. Those are what we're really going to focus on the most: so environmental sustainability, urban planning and development, facilities improvement, crisis preparedness and response, plan administration, and internal communication. The next page I realize is a little hard to read with everything on it, but these next 2 pages are the full plan. So, we have the mission, vision, and values up there at the top. We can see the 3 focus areas broken out, the objectives that go with those, and the HLIs. And then what really is going to help to understand how to take this plan forward are these 14 projects and the action steps that go along with them. So the next page has those projects again listed and 4 action steps for each of the projects to understand how each of the departments are going to move these projects forward. So that's what we got. That's the full strategic plan. I know we've had some back and forth, but are there other questions that anybody has for us?
Wow. You guys did a very good job of corralling a bunch of wandering cats and varied interests, but no, this is great.
Good.
I appreciate the time that everyone took from the council and the staff, and then the magic that you all worked behind the scenes to come up with such a concise document.
Yeah, absolutely. We really like to see very concise and not lots of pages that are going to get overlooked. So, we look forward to seeing it implemented.
Is that a motion?
That is absolutely a motion. One comment. AJ, can we get hard copies of this printed?
We will make the distribution correct.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And with that, I approve Council Letter 7817.
Motion by Carberry Montgomery,
Second.
second by Bodie. Discussion, please vote. That passes. All right. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
We will have hard copies at your next council meeting. Is that okay?
Perfect.
Yes. Yep.
It will save us mailing costs.
Appreciate that.
And I'll know that you all received it too.
Yes.
That'll be great.
And just to note, there's some things in there that we're already moving forward, but there's some things that should be on our immediate radar to start moving forward too.
Yep. Absolutely. All right. Item 11, Mayor and Council items. Bridget?
I actually have nothing to say.
Oh, gosh, I got a list, but I'll be brief. June 23rd, this Sunday, 3 to 4:15 p.m. in the Charles Gabus Memorial Garden. There'll be a flute and harp performance. Thank you very much. Please stop by. I'll try not to screw up. By the way, I have information from Cassie Druhl, who's the rain garden coordinator, about other communities and what they're doing with the rain barrels and rain gardens, and I need to get that forwarded to you, AJ, so we can kind of get that out to people. Got a little table from her that'll be helpful. I wanted to make a comment about consulting contracts. We already kind of referenced it would be nice to have a little bit more warning that they're coming up. And I know we kind of touched on this, John, on an earlier contract, but it would really be great to have a summary of the process, to know a little bit about the criteria that was used, kind of what are the criteria, how many, you said 10 firms today, 4 finalists, nice to know, but didn't know that until tonight, right? So it'd be great to know who the firms were, how they rated under the criteria, and maybe some comments that were made by those providing the overview. I know that when I was at a consulting firm, we loved getting to have that information. And I know it was presented to multiple councils in multiple places. So it'd be nice to put that little matrix together and make that part of the report so we have a little clue about what's happening and transpired. So that's just a suggestion I'd like to make. There will be an Icon board tour at Scott Avenue Thursday, June 27th at 1 p.m. So people who are interested in Icon, I think you could join that tour, and that might be a helpful thing. And if anybody wants to come with me, that'd be great. Two more things. 3 things. I got to the splash pad with my grandson. I'm sorry no one's from Parks here. That was just amazing. Thank you for that, everybody. You guys all went earlier, but I just got there this past weekend. I'd love to see if we could figure out a way to elevate that uplift report even though we don't get allowed to donate to it fiscally in the future, it would be nice if we could do something as a city to help tell the story of that Uplift report and what's happening there. That's an amazing program. And so that we could at least encourage private sector support of it, since we can't do what we like to do. And then lastly, I let Stephanie leave, but we've got to figure out how to make sure we keep that strategic plan in front of us. So getting the hard copy is really helpful, but it might be smart to do something once a month or once every 2 months about kind of how are we on the strategic plan. And now I'm done. Thank you.
Amy?
The only thing I have, we had, Bob, you were there at MAC.
Yes.
We had strategic planning at MAC last week.
In Urbandale.
In Urbandale, yes. There are 3 primary areas that came out. The one I'm going to talk, I'm on the Affordable Housing and Social Issues Committee. I'm still waiting to see if anyone else joins it. The other 2, the one was trick-or-treating, aligning dates for trick-or-treat, and I do not recall the other item.
Legislative.
Legislative.
And I'm on that.
And you're on that one. So that's what I have.
Blake, are you still awake?
You betcha.
God, that poor guy.
Yeah, just wanted to send out a big thank you to the staff that was doing debris pickup and technology management for making this happen so that I could be here tonight / this morning. And just huge shout out to all the staff. I mean, we do all sorts of stuff up here to like approve just massive amounts of work that get put together. And it's really quite impressive, the information we can get on all of this in such a short time too. So just a huge shout out.
Are you sitting right by the elevator? Is that what you're doing?
Yes.
Yeah, it is the elevator.
Oh, okay. All right.
I was looking.
They've got kind of a nice little coffee shop room in here.
All right. Well, thanks. Well, thanks for making the extra effort to join us, Blake. Appreciate it. Larry?
Yeah, you bet.
I just want to thank the staff that took us on the tour this past Saturday. It's always great to see the different projects that are going on, different focuses from the city staff, as well as this time around going to the Westcom's dungeon and getting to check out what all they're overseeing. And I also just want to share, I know AJ brought it up in the Friday brief, but Bravo recently approved a $10,000 grant that we had requested for the VFW / American Legion mural that's going to be going on their building. That was huge news. I was really excited to see that. And yeah, those are my 2 big things.
Ironically, that VFW mural was something that we talked about in like 2018
Yeah, I know.
or 2017.
Been out there for a while.
Yeah, it's crazy.
All right. I think you've covered everything that I want to cover, other than next week, Thursday, reminder, State of the City and flag reveal. So keep that on your calendar. With that, I'll ask for a motion to go into closed session.
So move.
Motion by Bodie, second by McBurney. Discussion, please vote. All right, that passes.
Bringing yet?
Thank you, everybody.